devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your number one sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your number one sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together they worked a young team to the top. And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, August 26th. I hope everyone is doing well. It is the Sick Podcast, and you're watching it live right now on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And it's brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by these guys right behind me in that fridge. Yeah, that fridge is stocked with products from the Geloso Beverage Group, notably La Bittt at Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the hot summer days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. Discover a world of luxury at Playground. They're also one of our sponsors. Explore their 30,000 square foot expansion with thrilling games, gourmet dining, and live entertainment located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. I have no idea why I do it, but I just do that all the time. Just over the Mercier Bridge. Playground. Experience the strip without the trip. We have a lot to get to today, but you know what? I really want to start the show by thanking everyone. I think most of you know by now that today I officially returned hosting a sports radio show with BPM Sports, hosting a radio show for the first time in an absence of 27 months. As a matter of fact, tomorrow will be 27. Tomorrow will be May, June, July. Yeah, about 27 months on the nose. It will be tomorrow. So once again, I've been a collaborator on BPM Sports. It's a French all sports radio station in Montreal that goes to Gatineau and Quebec City as well. And I've been a collaborator there once again for the last couple of years. And I, segment of about anywhere between 10 to 12 minutes. And they asked me to host a show and wanted it to be 3 hours. And I said, no, 2 hours. I already have a lot on my plate. Of course, with my TV collaboration on TVA Sports, Monday to Friday at around 5:30. That'll start, I believe, on the 16th of September this year. And, of course, with my podcast, which goes 12 months a year at 10 p.m. Eastern. I said, but I think I can pull it off in doing a 2-hour show. And they said, let's do it. And that's it. We did it. And I gave them my word several weeks ago that I would do it. And I officially signed on earlier this morning. And today was my first day. And you can check it out on YouTube. At BPM Sports. And what I love about this radio station is that they're very open-minded, and they're okay with the fact that I have been doing a podcast over the past couple of years as a collaborator. And when they asked me if I wanted to do a full-time radio show, I said the podcast is non-negotiable. And they said, of course it's not. We have no problem at all with that. We just want you to be a part of our team. And as a matter of fact, you can promote your podcast all you want. So I said, sounds good. I'm going to promote the podcast on the radio show, and I'm going to promote the radio show on the podcast. That's what I wanted to do all along. But hey, it is what it is. It's okay because, it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, I think, professionally anyway. Without further ado, let's bring in Eric Engels of Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. Eric, how are you?
Good, man. I'm happy for you. You're doing 2 days now.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yes. Today was 3 days because earlier today I had a CF Montreal podcast with Patrice Bernier, former member of the Montreal Impact. That went at 1 p.m. live. So the radio show went from 10 to noon. I got back. I arrived home at 12:30. I had a steak. I did the podcast from 1 to 2. Did a little bit of research the rest of the day. Did my prep work already for the radio show tomorrow. Doing the podcast now until 11 o'clock. And once it hits 11 o'clock, I'm going to go to bed and I'll wake up tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock and we're going to do it all over again. Speaking of which, I want everyone to know, and I told you to subscribe to the YouTube channel of BPM Sports, because tomorrow, a very important guest on my radio show called Le Forum, the Forum, Kent Hughes, dans Le Forum, avec moi-même, Tony Marinaro, demain, mardi, le 27 août, à 10h55. The radio show goes from 9:55 a.m. to 11:55 a.m. And right in between at 10:55 a.m., the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, Kent Hughes, will join me. So make no mistake, tomorrow night when we're going to do the show, what do you think we're going to have? We're going to have a bunch of Kent Hughes clips. Ils vont être en français. They're going to be in French, but it's okay. I'll translate. And we'll translate it all to English, and I'm sure we'll be able to comment. And I'm sure, you know what, we're going to be able to comment on what I expect to be a very good conversation over the next week or so. So like that, Eric, next week, when you and I touch base, we can get to it all over again.
Sounds good to me. It's always an interesting conversation with Kent, and he speaks the language as well as you do in French. Both of you guys are excellent, so I can't wait to hear it.
Merci beaucoup for saying that. I did battle some nerves today, but I think as the show went on, you know, you're always worried about getting a couple of words wrong in French. And then at one point I just said, screw it. Whatever I say wrong, and let's just go for it. And I think it started to get a little bit better after that. But tomorrow I expect it to be even better. So, all right. Let's start with Askarov. I want to start with him. A couple of days ago, of course, as you know, he was traded to the San Jose Sharks. Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet.ca, I have, as you know, a tremendous amount of respect for. Elliot is one of the best in the business, if not the best, with all due respect to everyone who does it. And he said that 3 teams were in the running for Askarov, and the Canadiens were one of them. I ask you if you're surprised by that.
Not particularly, but I'm also not surprised that he ended up in San Jose, because I think they were the only team that was going to give up what they gave up, right? Like a conditional first-round pick in there. This is a guy that has 3 NHL games of experience, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty hard if you're a team like the Canadiens to convince yourselves to give up those types of assets to get that player at his level of experience. I'm not taking anything away from the player. You know, he appears to be very talented, super athletic, big, you know, all those things that you want to see from a goalie. But as you and I know, like it takes time. And I think one of the reasons why I'm not that surprised to hear Montreal's naming it, if you're going to look at one question mark they have moving forward, it's what they have in net. And I'm not talking about the long-term future. Jacob Fowler, we can get to that inevitably. This year is going to be extremely revealing to them in terms of what they have with Montembeault and Primo. And, you know, I think the first test for Montembeault really was what happened post Jake Allen. And I went back and looked at the numbers, Tony. Like 12 games started. He had an .899 save percentage in those 12 games post-trade deadline. Caden Primo played 9 games, had a .921 average. And I think that what that tells me is Sam is coming to the season with the number one job to lose, right? Like he's got to be able to hold on to it and fend Primo off. And Primo is going to provide, hopefully, if he can maintain the level that he was at last year, some stiff competition for him. And that should be a good thing for Sam. It should be a good thing for Caden as well. But, you know, people who automatically go straight into Fowler and he's the future and this and that, like he's 21 years old and has 1 year at Boston College. And Montembeault and Primo are both cautionary tales in terms of how long it takes to actually arrive and be a player and be a player that can be depended on to win games at this level, at that position. So I think it's only normal that the Canadiens explore whatever options are available to them. And if they see something that could make for a better duo, to get involved in the conversation. But now that didn't happen, right? Like that competition is on between Montembeault and Primo, and we're going to see what both of them are made of.
You know, I really do think it's going to be a big year for the Canadiens goalies because, there's talk of the Canadiens being part of that mix in the final month of the season. And maybe, even with a couple of weeks to go, are they going to be there trying to battle for a playoff spot? And look, I think the Canadiens are going to be in that mix. And look, most people don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. But I'll say this. I think it depends on three things. And if we wanted to, we can give a list of 10 things that'll depend on. But I'm going to narrow it down to 3. And I'm wondering what you think. Okay. Number 1, health. If the Canadiens run into the injuries that they've had the last 3 seasons, they're not going to make the playoffs. Okay. So I'm going to say in no particular order, I'm going to give number 1 as injuries. Number 2, power play. The Canadiens have had one of the worst power plays in the National Hockey League for several years now. Several years. Doesn't seem to matter who their power play coach is. It just seems like they're in the bottom 5 or 6 teams in the league on the power play. And I think they need to get the power play in the top 15 of the league. Number 3, I'm going to go with goalies. Both goalies are going to have their best seasons of their NHL careers. And if those 3 things can all come together, I think the Canadiens can shock the hockey world and make the playoffs as early as this season. I don't know if it's a big shock, but I think the Canadiens can make the playoffs as early as this season. Look, I can give you 4 and 5. I mean, it would be nice if Patrick Laine scores 30-plus goals because, of course, we all know the Canadiens, up until the Laine acquisition, were probably 2 players away on the second line. So there's a ton of things, Eric, but if I'm going to narrow it down to 3, that's what I'm going to say. The power play, the goaltending, and the health.
Well, listen, I'll take the power play out of it because it should be a given that they finish in the top 15 with what they have. And maybe that sounds crazy to some people given what they've seen over the last couple of years, but the pieces that they now have in place, with Lane Hudson coming in, with Logan Mailloux potentially coming in, with Mike Matheson there, with Cole Caulfield, Kirby Dach playing a full season, hopefully, knock on wood, Nick Suzuki, Patrick Laine, Newhook too proved to be an effective player on the power play. They have what it takes to be top 15. They should even be potentially better than that. I think the bigger question is the young defense, right? Like, how do they hold up? One thing we definitely agree on, 2 things, actually. Injuries, obviously, health is always the biggest determinant. When you don't have a full slate in terms of top 6, because Demidov isn't here yet, it becomes that much more important that your top guys remain healthy. The young defense, that's one thing, but the goaltending, I totally agree with you, is going to be the biggest factor in their ability to come through on their goal of not only being in the mix, but making the playoffs, right? The management has had this buzzword or buzz slogan. It's been pretty consistent from Jeff Gordon to Kent Hughes to, I'm sure if Jeff Molson was asked about it, he would use the same words, be in the mix. I think if you ask the players, they're going to be talking about making the playoffs. And I think they feel that they're in a place where they can really take that jump. Goaltending, health is a determinant for every team, but goaltending for this one, it still has to be the best component for them to surprise teams. And I think there is potential that they can. I think those 2 guys were good enough last year that if you have a better team in front of them, it makes the difference. They can't be under the bar they've already set for themselves. They have to be continuing to take the next step. And if they do, it's going to give the Canadiens a really good chance.
What do you think the Canadiens would have had to give up to acquire Askarov?
Well, what did he go for, right? There's your answer, right? I think the way Nashville saw it is we've got a goaltender we drafted pretty high, and we need to at least redeem that type of value. That's a difficult thing to extract from anybody, but the one team that paid it was San Jose, right? A team that has those assets and has a desperate need for that type of player to come in that position. It's part of their build. It made sense for them to give up. For the other teams to give up that, it's a harder sell, right? I didn't see the Canadiens giving that up, which is why they don't have the player in their system right now. So, and again, I don't know what Askarov is going to be. I know what the talent level is. I know what the size is. I know what the sample is so far in the American Hockey League. He's played 3 games in the NHL. So I don't think he had that value to the Canadiens. I was impressed that Nashville, being in the position they were in with Askarov, basically telling them, like, I'm either coming to play with UC Saros or I'm not coming to Nashville. it's pretty impressive that they were able to extract that. But, you know, it makes sense when it's coming from San Jose, a team that needs to fill several positions on its roster and more so for the future than for the present. So for them, they've got the assets to give up a first-round pick to get the player. It's, you know, I think it makes sense for them.
Let's get to Slafkovsky because I read something very, very interesting. I had a chance to see a picture of him as well. And I think we all said, you know, at one point, Uri's going to fill into his body and fill into his frame. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with at that time. Not so sure that we have an article that came out of courtesy of Sportsnet. We do. Here we have it. When we arrived at Get Results Gym in Slovakia, Eric Cernak was doing sprints in the parking lot wearing a strap attached to a pole. Cernak is a massive human, and there were times I thought the pole was going to lose. Yuri Slafkovsky works out at the same gym with the same trainer. He's starting to look massive too, but thinks he's got more to add in his arms and shoulders. A 20-goal sophomore season has him in a great place mentally. Quote, I was more confident because I knew what people expected from me, he said, having learned how competitive the league is every game. You have to fight for your spot every day because one day you will wake up and you won't be in the same place as yesterday. He added he was trying to focus on all the little details to make things look good. Cernak and Slafkovsky cut no corners in their workouts. Eric, I would imagine he's going to be a tougher player to play against this year, and I would imagine the year after it's going to be even tougher, and the year after it's going to be even tougher. But at one point, it's going to get to this guy's going to be an eminent power forward in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, no debating that statement. And, you know, there's so many things to be impressed about when it comes to Slafkovsky. The attitude is right up at the top of the list, right? You know, you could be impressed about the 20 goals, the 50 points, the back half of last season. The fact that he was coming off a 39-game season in his rookie season and was able to perform the way he did last year with all that pressure on him. His attitude, though, is unbelievable. And, like, look, when I read quotes like that about his workouts, his size, what he's thinking about, like, we talked about this kid coming in at 18 years old and 238 pounds at 6'3". You know, he cut himself down to about 225 and was playing around that weight for the last year and a half or so. But he's getting stronger. He's getting faster. He's really having a physical transformation to grow into that body and not just be heavy, but strong and hard. And you saw the benefits of it already in terms of one of the most interesting things about watching him play last year was like, it was almost like he was learning in real time just how well he can use that size to his advantage. Like, there were games watching them down the stretch where it was kind of like, okay, he's starting to realize what he actually has and how to use it. And that's usually something that you would look at for an 18, 19-year-old kid and say, oh, this is going to come when he's 23. And it comes back to attitude. It comes back to the attitude he's had since day one of buying into the program, buying into what Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis and Jeff Gordon and whoever else, Adam Nicholas, have sold to him, that, like, don't look at the point column and the goal column and the assist column and just trust us that we're going to work at this piece by piece. And by the end of it, build a complete profile where you're the type of player that you want to be and we want to see. His buy-in, his attitude is top. Like, it's really top. And it's probably the biggest reason to be excited about his potential to reach as high as he can as a number one pick.
All right. So, you know, Nick Suzuki a couple of years ago signed an 8-year deal. Marc Bergevin signed him to it. He's completed 2 of 8. He's got 6 years left on that deal. Cole Caulfield last year was signed by Kent Hughes to an 8-year deal. He had 1 year completed. He's got 7 years left. Yuri Slafkovsky signed an 8-year contract extension a little while ago here. And he is, so he's got those 8 years. The window. I tell you the window. How many windows do they have?
It is the ultimate question, right? And I see a couple. You know, the first one can really open up 2 years from now. Like, you just look at where everything is trending. You got Suzuki at 373 games of experience. Caulfield's around 212, something like that. Dach at 205, something like that. Or maybe Dach is maybe I'm mixing up those two, but they're in the 200s. Like I've always said, and I've spoken to other players, but I spoke to like Shane Doan about this. 300 games is what it takes before an NHL player is really complete version of himself and trending into their peak and their prime. So that first window could really open up in a couple of years from now. But you look at Slafkovsky, who's got 121 games of experience, and he's 20 years old. And then you look at Demidov, who has 0 games of experience, and you look at Hudson and Mayu, who have 3 games of experience between them. You look at Reinbacher, who's 19 years old and turning 20 October 25th. And Fowler, who everyone wants to talk about as the future, and what we just said about how long it takes for a goalie, no matter how good they are, to get to their peak ability in the NHL and really show what they're made of. It's going to be the most interesting thing, I think, that this management group has to deal with. We've talked about the different phases of their rebuild, Tony. The first phase, asset collection, cleaning players out, getting contracts off the books, freeing up money, they based.
Mm-hmm.
Second phase of starting to team build. They've really done a good job of not getting ahead of themselves, of staying in the moment, building for the future, planning. The next phase, as they start to get answers to questions about their goaltending, about their young defense, about their young players who are coming around and their players who are maturing into their primes, is the biggest challenge of all. Because I think management has to look at the later window and say, okay, this is the one that could be extended the longest, right? Because just the sheer number of players. But they're going to want to give Suzuki, Gouli, Caulfield, Dach, and these players their opportunity too, especially if this team proves to be as competitive as it can. And the thing about windows opening is once they do, you really, we talk about it being a copycat league. I don't think that's necessarily true stylistically in terms of how you need to play. It changes every year. But I think it's true in terms of certain teams setting the bar of how you can extend a window and really make the best of it once it opens. And Las Vegas, for me, is the team that has really done the brashest work of, we love this player, we love him a lot, but there's another player we see out there that could be better. And so if a couple of years from now that window opens for the Canadiens, are they going to be willing to look at some of that young talent that's coming, that talent that could extend their window and say, you know what, they're really good? Are we going to wait for all of them to make it? Or are we going to take 1 or 2 of them and flip them for players who are established and better right now that give us a better chance to win? That will be the biggest kind of crossroads that this management group approaches. And I'm fascinated to see how they're going to handle it.
All right. I could be, look, I'm not going to tell you the Canadiens don't have several windows, right? But I think the one with the most probability, the one that's the most exciting, is the 6-year window. Because let's just say Suzuki walks in 2030 at age 30 when he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Yes, I get it. Caulfield will still be here, and Slafkovsky will still be here, and Hudson will still be here, and Demidov will still be here. But I think that if this Montreal Canadiens team is going to win a Stanley Cup, it's going to be with Nick Suzuki as their number 1 centerman.
Well, then you got to hope that first window opens up and opens up quicker. And that is a potential thing that could happen. We all expect the Canadiens to be more competitive this year. Mm-hmm. We also expect that by next year, Demidov comes, they have a complete top 6. The defense all of a sudden goes from within a range of 80 games to 250, 220, whatever it is. They're getting a lot closer to seeing that window suddenly crack open. Their first big decision in that first window is going to come with their best defenseman. And I'm not talking about Gouli, and I'm not talking about Reinbacher, and I'm not talking about Hudson or Mayu. I'm talking about Mike Matheson. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who's going to be up for a contract. And if he keeps putting up 60 points a season, which I don't see any reason why he's going to slow down dramatically, they're going to have to do a real sales job on him to stick around. Montreal's been great for Mike Matheson. It is not only resurrected, I wouldn't say it resurrected his career. 2 good years in Pittsburgh. Yeah. It was a gradual build, but this has been a phenomenal thing for him, being here, playing with this team, taking on the role that he has because they needed him to, and how he stepped into it and discovered the best version of himself. So decisions are coming. Difficult decisions are coming for this management group. And I think they wouldn't want it any other way, right? It's been good so far. It's been great, actually. I can't look at any of their moves in a vacuum or all of them as a complete picture and say there's something wrong here. Like it all looks good. The most difficult part is coming. The most exciting part is coming. And this year, whether the Canadiens make the playoffs or not, they've talked a lot about how they need to evaluate their players, their young defense coming up, and they need a bigger sample to be able to make decisions. This is a make or break year for them in terms of making decisions on certain players, right? Like Patrick Laine has 2 years left on his deal, Tony.
Yeah.
How critical do you think this year is in terms of the opinion the Canadiens will form of him? They have their own opinion of him right now. It can't be that different than anybody else's, which is that we all know he can be a productive player. Can he prove he can be a player that will help them win when the time is to win? And you're not going to wait 2 years to find out. You got to know after this season.
Yeah, but I want to get back to Suzuki for a second because I said, out of all the windows, I think the window of the next 6 years is going to be the most important one because Suzuki is going to be here for at least 6 more years, and then he might be, he might go UFA. Who knows? They might lose him. And there's something here in the YouTube chat. I'm going to try and get to it, and I just saw it, but someone says, "LOL." I'm trying to find who it is. LOL, Suzuki is not a number one centerman on a championship team. And I respectfully disagree. And I'm going to tell you why. Didn't the St. Louis Blues win the Stanley Cup with Ryan O'Reilly as the number one centerman? Now you're going to say Ryan O'Reilly is a heck of a player and he's a great 200-foot player. And I'm going to say you're absolutely right. But I'm going to tell you that the year that the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup, Ryan O'Reilly had a career year picking up 77 points. Nick Suzuki is still very early on in his NHL career, and he just came off of 77 points. O'Reilly had 28 goals that year. Suzuki had 33 goals last year. You're telling me that Nick Suzuki cannot outproduce Ryan O'Reilly? So if Ryan O'Reilly was the number one centerman on a team that won the Stanley Cup, why can't Nick Suzuki?
I don't buy it. I'm with you. I don't really buy into that argument either. And I understand Nick Suzuki is not Austin Matthews. He's not Connor McDavid. He's not in that mold, but he is in that other mold. And the player he's been most compared to since coming into the league is Patrice Bergeron. And I see a lot of similarities. I'm not saying Suzuki is Patrice Bergeron. He still has ways to go to be there, things to prove to be there. But he's taken all the steps towards that type of trajectory as a career. And Patrice Bergeron, I think, was a point per game player once in his entire career, even if that. And to me, outside of Sidney Crosby, he's the best centerman of the last 2 decades. So I don't buy the whole he's not a number one center on a championship team. I will say this, though. He had 77 points this year. There's more offense coming around him. He was playing, I don't know what his average was. It might have been 23 something, but there was a lot of games where he was playing upwards of 25 and 26 minutes a game. Can he be more productive in less ice time? We're going to find out. Does it really matter if he doesn't put up more than 77 points in terms of my opinion and what he is? He's a number one center in this league all day, every day. And I think a good enough one to lead a team to a championship if he has the proper insulation around him. So I don't really care about the point total at the end of the day. I'm not concerned about where it's going to be. It has consistently either remained at par or risen throughout his time, and he's right now entering his prime, like right now.
Yeah, we talked about Yuri Slafkovsky earlier on and the fact that he's getting bigger and he's getting stronger and he's filling into his body. Earlier today, by the way, it should be noted that he was awarded, the best Slovakian hockey player in the last year, an award that was given to him, actually handed to him by the great Marian Hossa. So congratulations to Yuri on winning that award at a hockey awards show earlier today in Slovakia. I think it bodes really, really well. Best forward of the year, Yuri Slafkovsky. All right, okay. Then again, there's some who believe that Kirby Dach could end up being a number one centerman on this team. And so I think it all depends on also what happens with Kirby Dach's contract going forward.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
You think Kirby Dach could be as good as Nick Suzuki?
So personally, I take a look at previous history and the amount of points that they put up. I don't think Kirby Dach will be able to pick up the same amount of points as Nick Suzuki. It doesn't mean that he can't be a number one centerman. And we've seen number one centermen not put up 80 points. And we've seen number one.
Forget the point, though.
Yeah.
Do you think he can be as good at his best as Nick Suzuki?
At his best, I think he has the tools.
Okay,
and
so
obviously a lot of people do. I mean, he was drafted 3rd overall.
If you have those two guys as 1-2, do you need a guy like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon? Listen, don't get me wrong. If I'm managing a team in the NHL, I take any one of those guys any day of the week. I want to have them on my team.
Yeah.
But if you have two guys who play that position at both ends of the ice as well as Suzuki does, then you have a team that can win a championship.
Yeah. It's all relative, though. Like Connor McDavid's the best player in the world, and he hasn't won a cup yet. Came really close this past year, obviously. He went to Game 7. There's a couple of goals away from winning it, but sometimes great players don't win the Stanley Cup, and other players do win the Stanley. I think Nick Suzuki. I think Nick Suzuki is a great player. I don't care what anybody tells me. He plays great. He's a good goal scorer. He's a very good playmaker. He's a good face-off guy. He's a 200-foot player. He's defensively responsible. He's the kind of player that you'd want on the ice if you're losing by a goal in the last minute, if you're winning by a goal in the last minute, if the game is tied in the last minute. I mean, why can't he's like, look, he's not the biggest guy at 5'11", but he obviously is very thick. He's over 200 pounds. He's tough to bump off the puck. His puck protection is absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, I think he's in the top 15 in the National Hockey League in holding onto the puck in the offensive zone. Tell me something Nick Suzuki can't do. I find that he is highly underrated in this market. In a market that usually holds their players to a very high standard. Some Montreal Canadiens fans, they exaggerate, right? They think every Canadiens prospect can end up being a star. But I find that Nick Suzuki isn't appreciated to his real worth. I think he's a fantastic hockey player.
There's one more thing on his resume too, right? Like his point production versus playoffs, regular season. He doesn't drop off. It's 23 points in 32 playoff games. It's right on par with what he's produced in the regular season. He has that experience as a clutch player. He's got international experience. He's done a lot of things to be able to round out the profile, and we haven't seen the best of him yet. Like, it's coming right now. It's on its way. He's been remarkably healthy. Hopefully he continues to be healthy. That's going to be a key determinant for him. But I'll say it again. If you have two centers on your team that are as good as that guy, you overcome the deficit of not having a guy like Connor McDavid down the middle or Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon. And let me tell you, if you look on the wings and what the potential is there between Slafkovsky, Demidov, Caulfield, Laine, you make up for it. So I don't know. I think we should put the whole Nick Suzuki, isn't he the debate to rest. Like, it's an absurd argument.
Enough already. He's a number one centerman. What more does he have? This past season, he was top 15 in the National Hockey League in points for players that played center, in goals for players that played center.
Definitely a nice guy.
What more do you want him to do? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
I just wonder if people like will people relitigate it if for whatever reason he ends up with 75 points this year instead of 77, or he doesn't score 90? Like, there's going to be the puck's going to move around a little bit more this year.
Eric, this is the way I look at it. This is the way I look at it, right? There were centermen last year who on their teams ended up playing on the wing. Okay. And so they weren't really centermen at that point, right? They're playing on the wing. Out of all the players that played center, once again, Nick Suzuki was top 15 in goals and top 15 in points. Once upon a time, naysayers, critics, haters would say, would he be a number one centerman on another team in the National Hockey League, on a competitive team in the National Hockey League? So I just tell you that he's top 15 in both categories, and we still have people doubting whether or not he's and he did it with Kirby Dach hurt all season. You know what that means? That means that every single night, the best shutdown player on the other team, the best two-way player on the other team, or the best player on the other team is going head-to-head up against Nick Suzuki all the time. And you know what? It's not Kirby Dach that's going to take that matchup away, because Kirby Dach was hurt all season. And he played with Cole Caulfield the entire season when people said that Caulfield struggled last year because his goals per game went down from the year before, and He was playing with a 19-year-old who was in his second season in the National Hockey League, whose first season ended up being half a season because he was out with an injury. Like, are people stupid or what?
Well, also look at the way he produces points for those guys. He makes everybody around him better, and that's what this is. That's what it is. If you're going to be an elite play-driving centerman in this league, you got to make the players around you better. Nick Suzuki does that. I think Kirby Dach has that potential too. And let me tell you, if that guy does what he's supposed to do and he can stay healthy, which obviously is a big if, that's another guy you add to the list in terms of big decisions they have coming and what they need to see this year. Circle him in red. Like, highlight his name and put him on the big screen, because this is the season for Kirby Dach. This is let's see that potential come to life, because it is there. It's unquestionably there, and he's answered a lot since coming to Montreal right away, because there was a lot of questions coming out of Chicago. But this is one of the most compelling things of this coming season is what if this guy can do what we think he can. And I know the Canadiens think he certainly can, and I have no doubt. I don't think you could find another guy in the room who will be more motivated than Kirby Dach. I'm expecting big things. I really am. And when I say that, I mean that I'm expecting that if he can prove that he's on a trajectory to be as good of a player as Nick Suzuki has become, the Canadiens are headed right where they want to go.
A shout out to Accent Insurance Solutions. You know, all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. It's Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. You can call them at 514-363-3636. Visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. Also, I want to talk to you about Manta Sleep. It is a sleep mask designed and optimized for the deepest possible sleep in any environment. Once you put the sleep mask on, you're going to find that it is adjustable. You're going to find that it is a personalized fit. You're going to find that it's very, very comfortable with padding, and you're going to find that no light's going to get in, and you're going to sleep so much better. Visit mantasleep.com and use code SICKHABS for 10% off. And I'm telling you, you're going to sleep better with that mask. So, you know what I love about Dach? I think he has, right now, I'm trying to think of somebody else, the softest hands of any forward on the team right now.
Right now, yeah. You've been watching Demidov highlights?
Yes, and once
you're inescapable right now. They're everywhere.
Once Demidov joins the Canadiens, Kirby Dach is going to lose that label of having the softest hands on the Montreal Canadiens, and it's going to go to Demidov. But Demidov right now is playing in a U23 tournament with Russia. They play it with 3 other teams, and right now there's a bunch of highlight reels out of him. Like, I mean, I haven't watched the entire games. I've watched the highlights. You know, we heard he was an incredible talent. My God, you watch the highlights. The guy's a phenom, man.
And that's the danger. Because I watched a lot of the highlights, but I did watch one full game, which happened to be the worst game that team played in this whole rundown. They got destroyed by Kunlun Red Star,
9-1 or something.
He still did a few things in that game that were really something. But watching him over a full game, you know, his impact was somewhat muted, and you know, hearing his coach make comments about how he's coming off a major injury, and we shouldn't forget that, is relevant. He's certainly getting blown up hype-wise. I don't want to add to that fire too much before seeing him play an NHL game. But seeing what he can do, is it a stretch to say that 5 years from now, this guy has very good potential to be the best player on the Montreal Canadiens? Like, he is – there's something special about this player.
I think, with all due respect to everyone, I think he will be.
Yeah.
Because his skill set is just off the charts. I mean, others will dominate in other ways. I still think that Nick Suzuki will be the best 200-foot player in the Canadiens. I still think that Cole Caulfield will probably be their best goal scorer. And I think that Yaroslav Askarov will be like the most to handle, and he's going to be their biggest horse. And I think that Demidov is going to be their all-around best player. I really believe that. In terms of the most electrifying player, I think he's going to be that guy. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the draft footage. It's absolutely fantastic, by the way. I love
Amazing
watching stuff like that.
Awesome.
And they asked him, who does he play like? And he said he's a mix of Kaprizov and Jack Hughes. He talked about the way he moves his shoulders and some of the moves he makes. And Jeff Gordon asked him, would we be crazy if we don't draft you 5th overall? And he said, yeah, you would be. And he said, franchise player. And he looked at him and he said, yeah, I think so. And it was just so sincere. Sometimes players, they want to tell you what you want to hear. And he obviously told Jeff Gordon what he wanted to hear. And he told the Canadiens fan base what they want to hear.
He believed it.
You can tell that he believed it, right? You can tell that he believed it. And I think it's amazing. I think it was amazing to watch. Good stuff.
You know what, Tony? He is in the best place he can be in right now. Developing one more year in the KHL where he's going to get professional experience instead of jumping right in, say something had gone wrong and the Canadiens had to fish him out of there. They're dropping him into the spotlight here before he's even played professionally. It could have worked. It just wouldn't be as ideal as exactly where he is right now, developing under a pretty good coach with a good system and a good team. And everybody seeming to have earnest intentions in terms of getting him good development and saying, if he ends up coming over to Montreal and is a top line player, we'll have done our job and we'll be cheering from him from here. That's pretty impressive to hear, especially considering kind of frosty relations between NHL, KHL over the last number of years, no transfer agreement. When he comes though, man, I don't know if there's going to be any stopping this guy. He has the attitude, like you said, he's got the swagger. He seems to have a lot of balance between those two things too. Yeah. Not cocky, he's just confident. And every NHL executive running any NHL team will tell you they like that. And this kid has it.
I think Marty St. Louis is going to have an awful lot of fun coaching this team over the next couple of years. The first couple of seasons have been difficult because they've been in a rebuild. And of course, it's been losing seasons and they've missed the playoffs. And a couple of years ago, they were the worst team in hockey. But I think he's going to have a lot of fun coaching this team over the next couple of years. He's going to have his hands on a lot of incredible talent. It's going to be a lot of fun. Eric, thanks so much for doing this. Always a lot of fun with you. It's the summer, so it's an abbreviated version. But the hockey season is around the corner, so get used to those 1 hour shows again. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Enjoy tomorrow. Say hi to Ken.
I will. Thank you very much. Eric Engels from Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. Merci beaucoup. And once again, yes, in case you missed it, I've started to host an all sports radio show again at an all sports radio station, and that is BPM Sports. You can follow them on YouTube. And tomorrow will be day 2 for me. Once again, it is in French, c'est en français. And Kent Hughes, the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, will join me tomorrow on my radio show called Le Forum. And by the way, if you see me doing this radio show and I still keep on getting messages, what's happening with your podcast, I need everyone to listen very, very carefully to what I'm going to say, okay? I left my old radio job to do the podcast full time, to take the podcast to a very high level. I wasn't going to do anything else that was going to occupy a lot of my time until we were going to get it to that point. Yesterday, the ratings came out for hockey podcasts in Canada. The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro is currently number 2 behind Spitting Chicklets. Now, I don't expect to stay 2 all the time. It varies. Sometimes I'm 2, sometimes I'm 3, sometimes I'm 5, and sometimes I'm 10, and sometimes I'm outside of the top 10. But I have to tell you, the entire summer, I've been in the top 10. So it's been a lot of fun. So we got it at a pretty high level, but we're not satisfied. I mean, we want to keep on doing the Sick Podcast until the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. And then at that point, we'll see. I'm not guaranteeing that because, who knows what can happen. But we're in this for the long term. We're in this for the long term. And the podcast, it's non-negotiable, right? You have to stop doing the podcast. No, it's not. No one. It's not going to happen. The podcast is here, and it's here to stay. And the plan is to do it for a very, very long time. I would like nothing better than the Montreal Canadiens to win the Stanley Cup. And at that point, I'm doing the podcast. I'm on the radio, doing a little bit of television, and we can enjoy the Stanley Cup because Lord knows, we've waited an awful long time. They haven't won it since 1993. They came close a couple of years ago, but they didn't really come close. You know what I mean? Anyway, it is what it is. Special thanks once again to Energy Transportation Group, to Bittt, to Tibi, to Playground, to Accent Insurance Solutions, and to Man to Sleep. Special thanks to all of you for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you liked it, comment sick, share with your friends. Tell everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And for Shane Gaumont at Master Control, it's the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. Tomorrow, when we come back, tomorrow night on the Sick Podcast, I'll have all of those clips, the audio of the questions that I asked Ken Hughes, his answers. And joining us tomorrow is former NHL coach, executive, assistant coach, Pierre Maguire. Talk to you then.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.